Hello, my yummy little unicorns. Welcome back to MB2 Underground, where we continue to prove to you that we curate a very intentional guest list. We don't just invite anybody willy-gilly. I'm Sarah Keifer.
And I'm Jonathan Tyroch. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, JT. How's it going?
It's going great. How are things in your world?
Fantastic. I said willy-gilly, and I'm feeling pretty good about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good introduction for our guest today.
Why?
Well, his name is actually Will Gill. Did you know that?
Will Gill.
Will Gill. Let me introduce him totally. So Will Gill, our esteemed guest today, has been with MB2 since 2011. He is a regional VP of operations and oversees a ton of our partnerships. Just like Logan Jack in episode 48, I believe, Sarah.
Shout out. Yes.
So go back and listen to that. Will is contemporary or serving in a similar role. So welcome, Will.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How many times in your life have you been teased about your name?
All my life.
Will Gill.
All my life.
Does anybody call you Bill or Billy?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, they try, sure.
And you let them?
No, I mean, I correct them, but
Oh my God, you're not a Bill.
I'm not like a name snob. It's my dad's Bill.
But you're not Bill.
Wait.
not
So
a Bill.
are you a junior?
I'm a junior, yeah.
So
So it's a family name.
can I tell you guys and the listeners a funny story, at least for me?
No.
I have a very... Thanks
We
for
don't
that,
care.
Go
Sarah.
ahead.
My 12-year-old son is your typical firstborn. He is like completely compliant. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. Like shudders at the idea of getting in trouble at school or anywhere. He got in trouble at school the other day because he told a substitute teacher his name was Bill. And he was mortified when she was like, your name's not Bill. And he was like, I'm kidding, it's not. But there you go.
Ha ha ha.
Testing
Yay.
those limits.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so in your intro, JT said you've been here since 2011, but I don't think that's your Paycom hire date. Tell us your origin story, your villain origin story.
Do you want the paid under the table story, or do you want... No,
It's the MB2 Underground. Of course we went the paid under the table
I'll
story.
give you that story, but it's funny how, music kind of puts you into a certain time and place. You kind of remember that.
Yeah.
This was not it. It wasn't that. It was the iPhone. Like, I came on vintage iPhone 4 going to iPhone 5. So like 2011.
So the way that you date the timing is based off of the iPhone.
At least my anniversary, because
That's
I remember
funny.
getting the iPhone 5. I'm like, yeah, we're going to do some stuff now.
Was that like a new hire gift that you got?
No, I paid for it out of my own pocket.
Just timing.
Yeah, this was 2011.
Oh, okay.
So there was no swag back then. iPhone swag.
There's no pro shop.
That'd be
There's no
pretty
pro
sick.
shop.
What if we just had MB2 iPhones in the pro shop?
Yeah. But 2011, man, a long time ago. Unofficially 2011.
How unofficially? Not like how on like a scale.
I wasn't
but like
on,
how
I wasn't
was
on
it?
payroll. I really how it happened was, so I met Dr. V. I think we all have an origin story on when we met Dr. V. I met Dr. V on Mother's Day 2011 at a Mavs game. So my wife was a dentist. She was invited to go to the Mavs game. Not really into basketball. I love basketball. So she said, why don't you take Will? He's like, okay, I'll take this nobody. And met him at his house. I remember driving there with Mauricio Dardano, his wife, Dr. V, and Carol.
So you were on a blind date with Dr. V.
It was,
your
yeah.
first
And
meeting.
to the Mavs game.
And Dr. Dardana.
And Dr. Dardano. And then it was at the game is where I met, a good portion of his family, his siblings.
And you mentioned that your wife, Dr. Gill, is the one that was like, oh, you should go in my place.
Yes.
So how did Dr. Gill and Dr. V get introduced?
So we moved to Texas 2010. She was working for a smaller DSO at the time.
Okay.
And she stopped 3 months in, said, nah, this is not for me. Met Dr. V, interviewed with Dr. V, was hired. I think she was maybe the third female doc he had ever hired, maybe the second, I don't know. Yeah. And she worked for him, and I met him through a Mavs game.
And he pointed at 2011 Mavs was probably like prime
Oh, it was a championship
time.
year.
No,
Yeah.
that was legit.
It was
wait,
good.
Mother's Day Massacre. That's when they beat the
I
Lakers.
think, that was when they beat the Lakers, yeah.
Yes.
Whoa, you were there IRL.
That's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
that was
the
game. That was
day,
game
yeah.
4. They
Game
smoked
4,
them.
right, with the Lakers. Yep.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
the massacre of Mother's Day, obviously.
Coincidentally, I was on an airplane with Justin Puckett that day, flying back from Florida from a bachelor party. True story.
So you meet at this Mavs game, and he's like, you've got to work with me now. Like,
No.
How did you start working with MB2?
No. So his sister, Anne, she was in basically HR at the time. And she said, hey, we're always looking for good people. But at the time, I was working. I was doing my thing. And
What were you doing?
I was doing property development.
Oh, very different than teeth.
Oh, totally different.
Yeah.
And I was I was happy. So I thought, and I was doing my thing. So she said, we're always looking for good people. And I always kept it in mind. But I met Dardano there. I met Shawan. I met Macaulay, some of the old senior partners back in the day, and V. So it was pretty fun.
That's cool.
awesome.
It was good.
So when you came on, what were you doing at that point?
Puckett always tells a joke because I predate Puckett coming on, but he said, "Weren't you selling insurance when I came on to MB2?" And it was a dental discount plan. It was kind of no, it's not.
Right, it's not insurance. Yes.
V had asked, and the senior partners at the time said, "Hey, do you think that you can create a dental discount plan for the offices?"
And you said, "Yeah, I do property development. I absolutely can."
I'm like, "Sure, we could do that." And it was myself and Anne's husband, Rodavera. Shout out to Roro. It was the inception of the dental discount plan into MB2.
Okay.
What was it called?
It was called Vita Plan.
Like
I didn't come up with the name. I think it was Vital Plan, but
Without the L, obviously.
without the L. We dropped the L.
Got to
too much.
shorten it,
We gotta shorten it up. Yeah.
make it sexy.
Yep. And I remember kind of building that company within a company where IT sits now in Trinity. That was our call center. We had a call center.
Gosh.
It was going to be good, but another funny story with Puckett was when he came on, he tells me, he's like, there are companies that do this, right? I'm like, we'll pay you to do this. and that was when they said, you know what? We're going to make that pivot. So
Sounds like a great idea.
yeah.
And did you transition from dental discount plan creation and management to operations directly?
Yeah. So Dr. Dardano is who called me, and no one knows this, but they had asked me to be the director of ops twice, and I said no. There's other people in the organization I'm sure that have been here before me, and
Playing hard to get.
I don't know. No, maybe. I didn't know dental. I didn't want to work in the same organization as your spouse. You're like, I don't know about that. But yeah, eventually came on with Dr. Dardano. It was interesting because he wanted to roll out ortho in offices, and he wanted to roll out hygiene in offices before there were no hygienists in his practices or in ortho. So I remember him talking to me, and he was comparing me to someone else in the organization. And he says, "Do you think you can do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I can do that." I said, "Not only will we produce it, we'll collect it. We're not just going to be willy-nilly about it."
Willy-gilly, if you will.
Willy-gilly about it. And from that point on, I was in ortho, building that program, hygiene, introducing it to practices at the time. It was a lot of work, but it was fun. It was rewarding.
What year was that?
2012, 13.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned about your wife being a doctor owner. During my integration years, I like to acknowledge that when working with doctors because I think it's a very interesting dynamic. How do you think being married to one of our owners has helped you in your career as a representative of this organization?
Susan said it best. She said, Will, you have the unique lens of operations through field ops, but you also have the lens of ownership through actual ownership and being married to a clinician. So that's helped me. That's helped me a lot. Just understand dental, and not just the business side of it, but also what our providers do day in and day out, which is take care of their communities and their teams. So it's helped me quite a bit because we live that every day. She owns a practice. She runs and manages it, and I'm there for support. I thought I was going to be the janitor. I literally thought, hey, when she builds a
Sometimes
practice,
that's what
I'm
you
just
are.
going to clean it. No, it's been a good team.
That's great.
Yeah.
So 2013, you move into ops. 12, 13. Move into ops. I mean, we could fast forward to 2025, and you are one of the 3 RVPs over a ton of practices.
Yeah.
Obviously, things have changed since then, but as time has passed, what has been the most fulfilling part of your role? That when you got here, you're selling insurance. What's been eye-opening for you and kind of exciting to see in the growth of the organization?
My leadership philosophy has always been servant leader.
Okay.
So to see the culture that V's created just sustain itself through the years, seeing certain people come to the organization that have truly been inflection points in the organization has been huge for me. Like I really appreciate that. I remember when Keifer was in marketing.
Do you remember sitting down with me and helping me like pitch myself? Like when I got asked to join integration, I was like, well, what do I say? How do I ask for more money? Like we went and had, like you've been a mentor to me since 2018.
Well, I appreciate that.
So it's cool to see, like, I know JT just talked about like the evolution, but when I got here, ops was pretty flat. And it's been really cool to see not only you and some of the older operations team members elevate, but also seeing them in a mentorship role and seeing their mentees as mentors.
No, I agree. It's rewarding to see folks move about, gain different roles, learn, and then obviously cross-pollinate. I think that's huge in MB2, as we all know.
I beg your pardon?
Cross-pollinate.
What does that mean?
Peer-to-peer collaboration.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like I think since I've been here since 2019, BD and ops, we've really, integration too, right? Sarah, you were part of all this as well.
Yeah.
Like we've really worked together and grown, I'd say even more collectively grown as a team, as a broad team.
Yeah.
Now, even in your role as you work with owner transitions, it's a very integrated operation between 3 or 4 now very distinct teams.
100% integrated, dependent on. We have to perform, and Sarah Keifer over there, she'll get you if you're not responding.
You hang on. We got to be nice.
I say that
to
respectfully.
Sarah. Respectfully,
She's great.
to
No, she's
Sarah.
really great.
She is great. Shout out, Mr. Keifer, Jeff Keifer.
Oh my gosh.
I hope you're listening and,
Our
and
listener.
watching.
Our listener.
Your daughter is amazing.
Shout out. I do follow up with Will quite a bit. But I will say, after our 11-hour road trip back from Nebraska and seeing how many calls you get and how many texts you get, I was like, whatever you need, I'll keep you on top of stuff.
That was a trek. That was
desperation. That was
awesome,
canceled
though.
flight away from losing our absolute minds. But it was a very key memory for me in my MB2 history.
Wait, so I have no idea what you guys are talking about. I
So,
can tell you
once
that
upon a time-
the listeners, I just got some questions from the YouTubers.
Why are
that-
they reaching out to you? They usually reach out to me.
Because they're like, JT, we don't know what the heck they're talking about. So
Mm-hmm.
enlighten us.
Once upon a time in 2019, I don't know, sometime between 2018 and today,
Cracky McGee's.
we were traveling in Nebraska doing an integration, and our Thursday midday flight home got canceled. And we did not reschedule fast enough, so they rebooked us for Saturday. And we were trying to go back and see if we can get an earlier flight. And Will made a comment about driving home. And I was like, ha, 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 no. And this is Wednesday, I think. I don't know what date it is anymore. But after getting pushed around with American Airlines enough times, I was like, let's do it. But I'm not driving. I'm not a good driver. I don't enjoy driving. So Will drove all 11 hours straight. We left at
Nice.
12 noon and got home at 11 p.m.
On Thursday?
I don't know. One of the days.
So, Will, you said something earlier today about music. Music is so what music were you guys listening to? That's got to be a core memory.
I was in charge of the playlist, and I loved it because Will would pull out his Shazam. So it was back in the Shazam era, and he would save some of the songs, and it was very validating for me. Shared
she has
music
a
is a
great
love
playlist.
language.
Yeah.
That I have no doubt. No doubt.
Okay, PTSD from an 11-hour road trip aside.
Yeah.
How have you been able to see the fruits of your labor in the mentorship capacity? You've got obviously me sitting here as one of your success stories. But when I think about your team and how many people that you are responsible for, it's like having a bunch of children that you're trying to make sure that you're raising into good quality, hardworking human beings.
Yeah. I again, servant leadership. It's all about putting people, the organization first before my own wishes and desires. I'm a company guy. I want to see people grow, develop, promote, and it's not about, I don't need the recognition. I'm Dennis Rodman without all the flair. I grab the rebounds, I kick it out to the people that make it happen, and that's how I see my role. It all goes back to servant leadership. So, the team is big now, and I appreciate all of their strengths. It is literally collective success with this team that benefits the organization and themselves. It's just pouring into people, and they pour into me. I'm no rock star. I just try to bring along great talent and help mentor and glean some good stuff in the process. I mean, that's my philosophy. It's a very simple philosophy. I'm committed to the team. They're committed to the organization. And I'm happy.
I get this question a lot, and it's one that I'd be interested to hear from you, like what your response is. Obviously, when we bring in new partners, one of the things that we don't do, or I always say we don't do, is we don't change things unnecessarily, right? There's only a handful of things that we change. We want the docs to continue to make decisions, to be autonomous, and practice the way they've always practiced. Let's put a scenario out there. Let's just say, hey, we bring a partner in and things aren't going the way that one would hope, whether that's, the doc's not digging what's going on, we're not digging what's going on, or it's just not what everybody or anybody had expected. Like, what do those conversations look like?
I would say it's never completely systemic, meaning it's not the entire system. It's parts of the system that either need to be clarified, level set, or, hey, you know what? We just don't do that very well. And that's okay. How do we get better? Now that we're partners, how do we make this better? And that's that collaborative spirit that is MB2. As you all know, you live it. I mean, you sense it.
We go here.
Yeah, we go here. We want things to be successful, and we want to try to maximize those outcomes to the best of their ability, and that's through that collaborative partnership. So it's not always going to be apples to apples sometimes. As you know, I mean, you deal with that, but we are committed on this side to make it work and to have the best possible outcome for sure. Yeah.
And how do you build that trust? I mean, especially from an integration perspective, you've got to get in and work with these new partners pretty quickly so that they trust you to help them affect change in their offices. Why do you think you're successful at that, or your team is successful at that, or MB2 is successful at that?
JC said it best on his podcast. We really try to...
Wait, you listen to the podcast?
I listen to
Oh my God, I love that. We got 2 listeners.
That's right.
2.
Continue.
For sure. So JC, and I'll tell you this, JC was, in my opinion, one of the biggest inflection points of MB2 when he came on board.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge. Obviously, V's the pinnacle, but everyone has contributed in these huge inflection points of the business, which I think is awesome. So that's one of those. Going back to that question you asked me, what have I witnessed? It's that. So, you talked about relationship, trust. I take it a step further. Trust, competency. Like, owners have to know we're competent in what we're doing.
Good point.
And we ultimately want to add value. So how do we build that relationship quickly? How do we build that trust? Obviously, MB2 carries with it a great reputation.
Yeah.
And not only do you have partners saying the same thing, but you have folks like us that work in the organization. We're all saying the same thing. So the cool thing that I know is true is we all say the same thing, but our feet go the same direction. We're not speaking one direction and going the other. So that's very consistent and good messaging. Operationally, we try to get some wins in the practice right away, some of the low-lying fruit. Some of the longer strategic plans, those take some time to not only cultivate that relationship and trust and to be able to get to that value piece, but it takes time. Hopefully you build that trust that they trust the process. Sometimes it's not a quick win.
This is a little bit of a selfish question for me to ask, but how do you see the difference in a situation from a private practice doctor owner joining MB2 versus an associate dentist becoming an owner through the support of operations, finance, legal, and my department? How does that experience differ from the operations side?
I think, this is just my opinion, but talking about the clinicians, one, building and growing and all that sweat equity that they put into it, like that builds character. We talk a lot about scar tissue. Like, that's a lot of scar tissue. With the owner transitions, obviously you get newer docs that don't have that that experience, that scar tissue, that grind. They're kind of coming into a practice that's been established, and they didn't have to do all of that heavy lifting, so to speak, in every area of the business. Really trying to convey an appreciation for that.
Yeah.
I think that is where we have to, yes, like V said in his podcast, budgets and profits are important, but it's all about relationship, creating that space. And these practices are those spaces where these new owners come in, and now they're holding, the keys to the castle. So
you're not buying a practice, you're buying a legacy.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
I like that.
So
I'll use that on our marketing materials. Thank you.
That's good.
yeah, I mean, that truly is what it is. And having those associates appreciate that, which they do.
Yeah, for
obviously
sure.
they do. The ones that are, that grow up in that atmosphere are easy to transition. External candidates, those are difficult because you have, Susan built out an integration process, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, plus BD on top of that. Owner transitions, external candidate is literally like
0 to 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to convey a lot of information, build trust quickly, and hopefully it comes to fruition and you get a great provider and partner that embraces the culture and loves MB2.
For sure.
It's cool.
Yeah.
What about your mentors? I mean, who would you consider have been over the course of your life and your career your mentors, and what do you feel like you've taken with you along your journey?
Wow. That's a good question because there's so
Thank
many
you.
people, but I'll keep it MB2 because I think that there's so much talent and mentorship that happens here. I'm going to just throw out some execs. I think Susan's a great mentor. Documentation and process improvement, one-pagers. She's great at it.
Mm-hmm.
And she recognized early on that a lot of the information around here was tribal.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, hey, what do you know? Pass it along. And she documents things as we know,
Yeah.
and is great at it. And she's a great mentor because she's very candid. She'll tell you what she's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
She'll give you feedback if you want it. And there's nothing personal.
Yeah.
It may feel personal, but it's not personal. No, she's great.
Meant to better you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be funny here, but V is really, he's like Doctor Strange, if I'm sticking with Marvel.
Okay.
Right? Like he's that mentor that, he's that guy that, and I think we all know it, he's a savant in a lot of ways where he can see outcomes before any of us do.
Mm-hmm.
It's that
And he's
hypervigilance.
so quick with it.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And he trusts his instinct, which I think is cool.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. When you see someone so smart, cool, calm, collected when there's chaos going around, you're like, all right, we're going to be okay. We're good. So that's mentorship. JC is the Excel Sherpa. That guy can tell a story through numbers and through his Excel spreadsheets that really wasn't Excel. It was an inflection point, I think, operationally for MB2 when he came on.
Yeah.
Really started pulling data, and that was great. No, I mean, he's been a great mentor too.
What about non-MB2?
So in my past life, we did a lot of bids, RFPs
yes.
with a lot of large companies, Target being one, Target Corporation. There were a lot of great executives there that even though you didn't solicit like mentorship, they just gave it to you.
They're excited.
Mm-hmm. There was a guy named Drew that was absolutely one of my favorites. And I remember one thing he said, there's no substitute for hard work. There's just not. So I've lived by that and work hard. There have been a lot of influential leaders, and I read books, and that's how I stay on top of
If you
try
could
to better
recommend,
myself.
if you could recommend one book to our listeners, what would it be?
How about one fiction and one nonfiction, or do you read them both?
My team would say, it's funny because I'll always quote like Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings or something silly like that.
So nonfiction.
Nonfiction. But one book recently that I picked back up is the
Cat in the Hat.
It was One Fish, Blue Fish. No,
It's a nonfiction.
It was 5 Dysfunctions of a Teen.
What are
it's
they?
Good ones. Sarah.
Cliff notes
so
us.
It's going to be
How much did you pay attention?
Put lack in front of a lot of things, but so it would be like a lack of commitment, lack of trust, lack of paying attention to results,
Yes,
lack of accountability,
for sure.
fear of conflict. Like those are the things that if you're gonna create a team, they have to not lack that.
Yeah.
You know, they have to be able to. You have to have trust. You have to be able to have. I think a lot of the seniors right now are reading Critical Conversations, which I think is helpful. It's just giving you tact on how to be, how to achieve a desired outcome and be influential and be collaborative through some hard conversations. Accountability, you got to hold the team accountable. I mean, make no mistake, MB2 is great. We get great results. But there's a level of accountability here that you have to have.
Yeah.
You don't get to be MB2 without accountability. It's not just some laissez-faire, let's just throw the chips up and see where it falls. That's not what it's about.
Sorry, I laugh because this past weekend I went to an outdoor area and there was a kid throwing rocks straight into the air and they were falling on him. So when you said throw the rocks or the chips in the air and see where they fall, I'm like on the little kid's head. That's where they fall. Continue.
Yeah, so I mean,
He just kept doing it. I'm so sorry.
I can
like,
tell this
bruh.
really affected. Let's talk about it.
Bruh, you just keep getting hit by rocks. Okay, I think I'm done.
So, hey,
You
learn the hard way.
Maybe it's a metaphor. You can only get hit by rocks so many times before you realize, should we be paying attention to where we're throwing these rocks? Am I right, Will?
I think it's a book title.
Okay.
I think you got something there.
Yeah.
It's gonna write itself.
I'm gonna write one of these days I'm gonna write a podcast book, and that's gonna be the title.
Really?
You can only get hit by rocks so many times before ... by JT.
Please don't do that.
Forward by Will Gill.
I'd read it.
I wouldn't. What excites you about the future of MB2? What are you looking forward to?
Really, I guess the challenges of scaling the organization.
Oh, yeah.
Maintaining this culture. Trying not to, actually thinking about it, I was at an owner event when I met V in 2011. We have owner events now still. That consistent.
Whoa, you were at an owner event.
Yeah, that consistent tie, right? That's going to bind is not moving away from the things that's made the organization great, no matter how big we get.
Yeah.
I think is very important to remain consistent.
Yeah, that is the culture is one of the things that I think is one of the greatest ties that binds everybody here from current day, like you said, to early days, and just continuing to pour into that.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question before we wrap up? Sorry.
No, go for it.
You're talking about the transition and the scaling of whatever comes next, but you've been a part of MB2 since there were like an office and a half, like way back in the beginning.
Yeah.
Do you have any we talked a little bit about pivotal points that you noticed where we made a change that allowed us to scale, like one shift, those like key moments where we were able to do something? Like for me, I always think about Jarvis. Jarvis for me was such a cool point of, now we can see all of this. Like now it exists in a central location. But what would you say?
I would say it was more people than technology. I guess you can say
That feels like a Will answer.
Some people could say it was technology. I'd say it was people. It's interesting as I look around MB2 and I walk the halls here. It's always cool to see some of the old G's, the OGs, right? Like,
the oest of the G's, yes.
Yeah, the original operations team is still here, less one person. They're just in different roles. I think that's really cool. Jamie Sanchez, Jamie Peterson, Vanessa Collinsworth, Soshi, Johnny.
Yeah.
Melena's been here forever. Yeah. Like those are folks that are tried and true MB2. And it's just cool to see that. When you look at the years and the span of years, there's people that are still here that predate me. I mean, some of them are 16 years. Wow. That's a long tenure, which is great.
It is cool working with talent acquisition for external candidate recruiting for owner transitions. I work with 3 people that in marketing I worked with in operations. So I was a marketing coordinator and they were ops, and now we're all collaborating on how to support the next generation of doctor owners, and that's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. Yeah.
Well, Will, thanks for joining us today, coming on
finally,
and enlightening us on servant leadership. That's something that I've taken, in our relationship as I've gotten to know you, that really has impacted me. And I think you do an awesome job of that. And it reflects in your people and the partnerships and kind of permeates even through the folks that I get to work with, because I've used you as an example. So you talk about mentors and mentorship. I take stuff from you every day.
Big
I
permeations.
appreciate that. Thank you.
MB2 Undergrounders, we are at the conclusion of this episode. If there are people or vendors or relationships that you'd like to see on the podcast, let us know. But until next time, we'll see you.
See ya.